So we've been talking with Don Moore and BJ Lechner, Decision Associates M&A, about a lot of things about for owners to consider for the day that they consider selling their business. But a lot of owners aren't ready to sell their business, and then all of a sudden, the call comes. That call out of nowhere, they might have planned to work for another 10 years, 15 years even. They might have children lined up in the business that they're thinking are going to take it over. And then that call comes, the call that with the offer that they can't refuse. What happens? Is it, what happens at that point?
Yeah, first of all, the owner's never prepared for the call, usually. And so he gets a call and he doesn't know what to do. And he wants to get back, and sometimes needs to get back because it's a customer, so he can't disregard the call. And selling a business is really complicated, so it's not something that the normal business owner would tick all the boxes off going that way. So he has to get somebody to work with him to explore this. What's his business worth? What are the weak points of the business? He has to go through a list of things before he would go the next step with that potential buyer. Because there might be some things he doesn't want that potential buyer to see, or there's things that he may want him to see to highlight the business to make it more valuable. So that's where we really work with the seller that gets that unexpected call. We go back to the person who made the call and say, we represent the seller or the potential seller, and what is it that you want, and then we formulate a package that will enhance that.
With those types of calls, is there an urgency to them? In other words, is that potential buyer saying, look, this is a limited time offer, I'm looking to make this acquisition and I need to get it done in the next 6 months? Does that happen?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's part of the plan, in fact, is, they're not going to say it, and I know what you mean by a limited time offer, but they're going to leave a sense that there's some urgency. Yeah. And I actually had a call with a fellow yesterday or the day before, and he said, I'm not going to sell it, but I got this call, and they started talking about sending me an LOI. And I said, first thing is that you slow down. Just what BJ said. Don't sign an LOI because they want you to. That LOI, they're going to say to you the letter of intent or letter of interest or whatever they call it. Well, they're going to say it's non-binding. It'll give you a sense of what the value is and those kinds of things. So it's okay to sign because you're not bound. And I'm going to say they're binding you for 90 to 120 days that you can't talk to anybody else. So their goal is to get you to sign that, take you off the market for 90 to 120 days, and slowly reel you in. So the first thing you do is do nothing, just what BJ said. And the second thing you do is say to them, I'd like to have something to work with. Send me a document that tells me why you're interested in my business. And in the meantime, I need to get some representation. I need to talk to somebody who's done this. Because another thing that that the buyer has is they've done this more than once. They've bought more than one company. They know how to trip your trigger, and they know how to manipulate you and move you along, and not maliciously. They're looking out for their best interest. But they've got a team behind them. You've got you, and that's what they're trying to do, is to keep you moving and keep you moving unprepared, by feeling like if you don't do this, you're toast, especially if it's a customer.
Absolutely.
So, the first sign you have to send to them is you're thinking, I need to pull together a team. Now, that's not necessarily, the team is an attorney with transaction experience, a very good accountant with transaction experience. And you should have somebody like us. We're not the only ones in the world. We're the best, but we're not the only ones. But you need a team like that, and you need time to catch up to the level they're at. And we often say to the client early in that stage, as I said to this fellow yesterday or the day before, you want to leave them with the sense that you'd actually been thinking about this. You knew you might get a call and say, let me talk to my let me talk to my team about it. That's gonna send a signal to them that what they're trying to do isn't gonna work.
We actually, then, if we're representing the client, we go back to the potential buyer and say, you know, what's your interest? Why are you interested in this business? And then, how are you going to handle working capital? How are you going to handle employee retention? Are you going to require contracts from key employees? So we ask them a lot of questions which will end up being in the LOI, and it will be defined up front, rather than the person signing an LOI, holding up business as usual for 90 days. We try to get all that up front. It lets the company that made the call know that we've been there before. We know what the important questions are. We know where the difficult issues that we're going to get into down the road. And we'd like to get that cleared up before they set foot in the business.
Absolutely. To say it bluntly, using some acronyms, we want to negotiate the LOI, not the contract.
Yes.
I mean, I can see a lot of business owners, particularly those that, you know, have not bought other businesses. They basically run a family-owned business for years and stuff, that they probably envision that the day of selling their business is a bit like playing poker. And it's really more about strategic discussions and asking the right questions.
It's three-dimensional chess.
Yes.
It's three-dimensional chess.
Just no other way to put it. It's a difficult transaction. The typical contract would be 50 pages with amendments, representations, warranties. There's a lot to it. It's a gut-wrenching process for a lot of people because they've never done it before, and somebody's really examining their business down to the details. So we've got to get in first, find out, why do you want to buy this business? What information do you require? Do you have the financial wherewithal to make it happen? And so forth. So we flesh out as much as we can right up front.
Yeah, exactly. The things that BJ just mentioned, a buyer can give you a nice number that, wow, that's a lot of money. And then they use the negotiating process around these other things to chip away at it. And all of a sudden they've chipped away 25% of it. And that's in the buyer's best interest to do. Our job is to make sure that doesn't happen.
Great.
Yeah.
And it is gut-wrenching for everybody.
Yeah.
Really insightful, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.